I'm Simon Cox, and this week in The Report, I investigate what's being done to tackle bankers' bonuses and what the banks themselves are doing to counter new rules. It's bonus time again in the city. An estimated £7 billion will be paid to bankers in London in the coming weeks.
Everyone's excited. The money's back in the system, spending. I can see diamonds on Valentine's Day. It's the Ferrari season.
The Prime Minister wants bonuses to be smaller, but what can be done to curb them?
Bonuses have actually got bigger and the performance has got worse. And that's the problem we have to address. So it's not the fact that bonuses per se are bad, it's the fact that it's too easy to get a large one.
In The Report this week, we hear from a group who normally keep silent, the bankers themselves. We test how genuine the threats are from banks and bankers to leave the UK, and we investigate what's being done to tackle bonuses and reveal what banks are doing to counter new rules. Stephen Ray's shop, English Tailoring, is decidedly low-key and compact. There's a table of fabric samples, a sewing machine and a side room for pressing. If a client needs to get changed, they have to shut the shop.
I'm sewing a sleeve in at the moment, and this is what we call sleeve head wadding or sleeve head roll.
Ray is stitching a boating blazer in lurid blue and red stripes. I think it's the lining, until Steve sets me straight.
This is something that we do for a corporate team. When they reach their sales targets, they get a Henley blazer, one of our Henley blazers to wear. It means the people who've met their target, they're quite conspicuous because the Henley jacket, as you can see, is quite bold. We actually design the cloth for them and it's made specially for this company.
Have you been making many of these then?
We're making probably about 20 this year for the company.
Businesses like this are an indicator of potential bonus pots. If bankers are expecting big payouts, they'll order more suits and more expensive ones. In leaner times, it's one suit or none at all. So how does Steve read the runes for this year?
We tend to be busier. If the bonus is forthcoming, then yes, we definitely see it. There's a feel-good factor to it that they think, right, OK, I want to look good, and they get out and start spending part of their bonus.
You were saying that things have definitely... Are they picking up, Steve? Are you noticing?
They're much more optimistic than they were, yes.
And what about the thorny issue of the prices then?
They start from $1,300 and they go up, but they're hand-tailored, bespoke-tailored on a full canvas. They will last you a lifetime.
We don't know how much banks in London, particularly the four big British ones, will be paying. The best estimate has come from the Centre for Economics and Business Research, which suggested bonuses would be around £7 billion. That's similar to last year, but this time around there's not the bonus tax, which meant 50% went straight to the exchequer. Much of the focus has been on the chief executives and their multi-million-pound payouts. But the vast majority will go to those in the so-called mid-level positions, earning between £100,000 to £250,000. So what are they expecting this year? For the past few weeks, I've been trying to speak to people within the banking community who are going to be getting bonuses in the coming weeks and months. But the banks themselves repeatedly send round emails to their staff telling them not to talk to journalists and that if they do, they could end up even losing their job. I've come down to the city. I'm just next to the Bank of England and about to enter a pretty grand-looking Royal Exchange, which used to be the trading floor of the London Stock Exchange. And I'm going to meet a banker who has agreed to talk to us.
It's an amazing place. It's got an amazing spirit about it. And as you can see, there's every table's full of people doing deals, trying to raise money probably, trying to recruit staff. Yeah.
Lots of interviews going on. Inside the Royal Exchange, we meet a corporate finance director. She's described herself as mid-level in banking terms. She's had a long career in the city and works with numerous investment banks. We'll call her Kate, as like all of those within banking we've spoken to for this programme, she didn't want us to use her real name.
A normal bonus for a normal investment banker earning $100,000 a year, for example, would be 50 to 100% of their salary on top of that. And then there's the traders and the sales guys in the city. They make £80,000 a year. Again, you're looking at about a 50% on top of that in bonus, so that would be their target income.
And when you're looking at your contracts, what would you be expecting as an employee?
Your target income is always 100%. Okay, so it's always 100% of your salary. So if you make 80 grand, your target income's 160. Really, that's what people aim for. And bankers have been fairly happy to stick with it and stick through the recession. But I think now that we're working our way out of the recession, out of the economic crisis, they're going to want to start to be rewarded for what they're doing now, working very, very long hours, 7 in the morning till 9 at night, 5 days a week. And it's very difficult work.
They may work long hours, but they're well rewarded, particularly those in what's called the front office, the traders and quants, mathematicians who devise complex financial models for banks. Like many quants, David did a PhD in maths and computer science before going on to work for several global investment banks. He's prevented from speaking to journalists, so his words have been voiced by an actor.
For quants, the bonus forms a large part of the salary, and they'll depend on it. The base salary in banks is generally the same across the industry, but how long people work and what they do and the pressure are not. People have difficult situations with their families because they work long hours, spend a lot of time at work, and they see this as compensation for the lifestyle. If you remove compensation, you'd understand that these people would be upset, and they may move to different industries.
This compensation in the annual bonus is supposed to be determined by how much money an individual or their team has made the company. The better they perform, the bigger their bonus. Dominic Connor, a city headhunter who specialises in recruiting quants, says top performers in particular view these one-off payments as indicators of excellence, which separate them from the other ordinary bank workers, and they expect them to be substantial.
One's typically talking about 100% and up, with, if you like, a gentleman's agreement that they will get a percentage of the money they make. So 100% is by no means uncommon. 200 or 300% bonuses, that's the sort of money they're looking at. But they're also looking for it to increase. And several of them were quite almost as if they'd been done down. They'd almost been disrespected by their employers by putting them on fixed money, because fixed money is seen as something the sort of rear echelon people do, the back office people who aren't seen as the elite. And that's why people want to move into the sectors where there's greater possibility for bonus. And these people tend to be of an age where if you said to them sort of double or quits on money, that would seem to them a perfectly reasonable thing to do.
What many people may not realise is that there will be significant changes to bonuses this year. In the past, the highest earners would expect most, if not all, of their payout in cash. But new rules brought in not by UK politicians but European regulators mean this year that's no longer allowed. Staff getting the biggest bonuses, over £500,000, can only receive a minority in cash. The rest has to be in shares and payments deferred over several years. In the city, I meet the Lib Dem MEP Sharon Bowles, who as chairman of the European Parliament's Economic Affairs Committee played a key role in shaping the new legislation.
We made it so that you can only have a maximum of 30% of your bonus in cash, and that a very substantial part has to be deferred over 3 to 5 years, 40 to 60%. The idea of deferment being that then if the bank goes down, you can claw it back. And of course it's a lot easier to claw something back that you haven't given to somebody than something that you've given to them and say, hang on, especially if they've left and you want it back.
How much opposition was there when you were trying to bring that in?
Well, there were quite mixed feelings across the Parliament. I think just about everybody wanted to do something to restrict bonuses. I mean, there were some that were very extreme and would have banned them altogether, and although perhaps many people had their hearts there, it wasn't practical. But I mean, the UK and UK MEPs actually played a very big part in pushing through what were measures that were much stronger than were being proposed on the international scene at that stage.
These new rules are being implemented by national regulators. Here, it's the Financial Services Authority. It's decided to make Britain's rules on bonuses the toughest in Europe. It will mean that someone on £1 million bonus, seeing the amount he gets in cash fall from around £360,000 last year to £100,000 this year. Regulators believe changing the way that bonuses are paid with longer-term incentives will deter bankers from the kind of risky deals which led to the bailout. We don't know if this will work, but bankers don't like it. Headhunter Dominic Connor says the risk takers and money makers in investment banking see rewards in shares the same way they do as getting a salary.
One of the things that anyone who's competent enough to get a big bonus knows is that you don't want to own shares in your own company. It's doubling your risk. You want to own shares in someone else's company, because if your company goes belly up, you will lose your job and you will lose your stock options. So actually that's doubling your risk. When you look at a big bank, the effect even a quite senior person has on whether that firm goes bust or not is very small. And they know that one day they will leave this bank and their money will be tied up in the hands of people that they left behind when they moved. And that worries people.
These so-called star performers may be getting stratospheric pay packages running into the many millions, but below them are a whole host of others also pulling in bonuses in the hundreds of thousands. There's concern even within banking about whether they deserve this much. Earlier this week, the chairman of the Royal Bank of Scotland, Sir Philip Hampton, broke ranks and told the BBC that many bankers are paid more than they're worth.
The star quality, as it were, seems to filter down to people who don't seem so star quality. There is, if I can use the expression, a sort of gangmaster culture or phenomenon in this, that you recruit top people who really do make a difference, who really do move markets and get business, really high achievers. But they do tend to associate themselves with people who aren't such stars, and the disparities between the top stars in the team and some of the journeyman players, if you like, is probably not as marked as it should be.
Sir Philip said openly what others inside the city have been thinking for some time.
I believe that some of the bonuses are outrageous and a lot of them probably aren't deserved.
Professor Chris Roebuck from the Cass Business School had a long career in investment banking, including a stint as head of global talent at the Swiss bank UBS.
We're in a position where, yes, bankers have begun to view the bonus as part of their right on an annual basis. And most people in banking think that they're going to get a bigger bonus this year than they did last year as a matter of right. This effect has now got to the point where there are a reasonable number of what could be described as average performers who do get a reasonably large bonus for actually just turning up and being on the back of a market that happens to be going up. The bonuses have actually got bigger and the performance has got worse. And that's the problem we have to address. So it's not the fact that bonuses per se are bad, it's the fact that it's too easy to get a large one.
Headhunters and even some bankers we spoke to agreed that bonuses to some middle-income earners were hard to justify. We wanted to ask the likes of Barclays, Lloyds and HSBC about this, but none of them wanted to be interviewed. So we turned to Angela Knight, chief executive of their trade body, the British Bankers Association.
When you talk to headhunters, when even you talk to people who work within the city, is this idea of so-called average performers, that those bonuses for those people is often too easy to get, that even the banks think that?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I think all sides are in agreement on that one. Bonuses are for performance that is exceptional against good targets, and that performance has got to be for the long term.
So would that become too easy then, do you think, for some of those people at that level to get them then, I suppose?
I think the implication is that in some areas that would probably have been the case. That would probably have been the case.
So if bankers are saying this, why can't the government do anything about it? Last year alone, the Bank of England say taxpayers subsidised RBS, Lloyds, HSBC and Barclays to the tune of £100 billion. New rules may mean some top bankers are getting less in cash, but their overall pot hasn't changed much.